you're getting that, you're going to start to discover what it is. It's a little coin. But I want to tell you a story about what this means to me, because when I was first married with my wife, we were young newlyweds. We went camping. We got any campers out here? Yes? All right, so if you've ever been camping before, you know when you go camping, you're not alone. You normally park at that campground, and then there's other people that are there around you. And so you kind of get to meet the people that are around you, because generally campsites are crowded. You got people that are close by, right? So anyways, we get settled down, and we get our tent set up, and we're ready to go. And then we start to meet the different people around us. And there was one gentleman in particular that was there by the name of Earl. And I remember him because his way of breaking the ice of introducing himself to us was by, he was maybe 3 times older than I was at the time, but he comes up and he's like, oh, hey, I talk a lot about Jesus, and a lot of times people, when I talk about him, they're like, yeah, I'll get around to it someday. And he's like, well, I've got around to it, so I'm going to give it to you today so you can get around to following Jesus. All right? Yeah, I know. I thought the same thing. I was like, this is going to be a really interesting weekend at this campground. But listen, the reason why I want to show you guys and share this with you, because it's more than just this coin, right? We are a church for generations, and so there's some awkwardness between the generations. But the big thing that we have as a part of our DNA here at Northwest is we take the best and we leave the rest. You see, that weekend, I got a chance to go catfishing with my friend Earl, because he became my friend. But he was an old retired pastor, and of course he had his interesting ways of meeting people, but he brought me alongside of him to go catfishing with him. He brought me out with the catfish lines, caught catfish, brought them in, cleaned them, drained them, all the rest of the stuff, and then had a fish fry, and it was the best catfish I have ever had. Now, I've not had a lot of catfish, just in all fairness, but this was his retirement plan. His retirement plan with his wife was to live in a campground to sell catfish. I was like, and you brought me with you? Like, that's so cool. But what I'm trying to say is, you take the best and you leave the rest. And you may only have a short period of time, like I only have about 25 minutes with you this morning, so I want you to take the best of what I'm going to share with you and just leave the rest, all right? You guys with me? All right, good. So we've got relational overflow that we've been doing this month, and we've gone through several weeks, and we've gone through healthy relationships, sharpening one another, healing for a better marriage, and then today we get to finish off this series with Reconciling Well. So how do we reconcile well? This is a word that if you've grown up in church, you probably heard it a lot, but maybe you haven't, maybe we don't know what it means. So it's always good to start with what the actual definition of reconciliation is. And so to reconcile is to restore to friendship or harmony between two people, to come to an agreement, an answer, solution, or something, basically to settle or to resolve. So it's two people saying, listen, there's some beef between us, but you know what? I'm going to be the grown-up, and I'm going to say we need to settle this and then bring things back together. I want to reconcile with you between two people. Now, that's important because we've got the Webster's definition, but then we want to look at it in terms of the biblical context, which we're going to be covering this morning. You see, first it starts with Jesus. As Adam shared with you this morning, it starts with the work that he has done on the cross. It's not because of you, it's because of who God is. God has already made a way to reconcile us to him. And he did that, and it's been accomplished on the cross. But in true fashion of God, he doesn't just do things so we just get to sit back on our rear and do nothing. No, he does stuff because he wants us to be a part of it. And so he gives us these two things, vertical reconciliation and horizontal reconciliation. Now, the vertical reconciliation, he made a way for us. He died on the cross, but we still have to receive what he did. We have to accept what Jesus did on the cross, right? So that's the vertical reconciliation. We need to restore our relationship with God first so we can be back in relationship with him. And we do that through his son. So we have to receive what he did on the cross. But when we do that, he doesn't let us stay there. He says, but wait, there's more, right? He wants us to do the horizontal reconciliation. So what's that? That's all of you. That's all of us here today. He wants us to be able to reconcile with others. And in fact, he says, as believers, we're called to actively seek peace and reconciliation with one another. So we do that, obviously, through repentance, but we also have to admit our part of the problem, right? Because if we're going to solve something, we can't just be like, you're the one who did this. we have to be able to take the time to be able to say, okay, listen, I know my part in this, but it's more important to resolve those differences that we have so we can reconcile together, right? And then at the very end, everything ties up again with God at the end, because God is the Alpha, the Omega. He is the beginning and the end, but we get to be part of that story right here in the middle. So this morning, what we're going to do is we're going to take a drive through reconciliation. So let's go ahead and buckle up and let's get ready for this drive, all right? So let's start off with reconciling to our past. When we get in the car, it's really hard to go somewhere without looking back, right? We're going to start with that. Okay, so we're going to break it down into two categories, and we're going to start off with what was done to you, okay? Because everybody's had something done to them, and usually this is the stuff that's kind of outside of our control. It's the stuff that has been done to us, not because of who we are, but maybe just the family we were born into. There's so many circumstances in our life, but we have to recognize a part of our past is just some things we can't change, because you can't change your past, but it's something that was done to you. So we're going to look at Joseph, and there's over 10 chapters, and the best way that I know how to summarize it is in visual form. So we're going to look at the path to reconciliation for Joseph. All right, so we've got the good, we've got the bad, we've got our timeline, and we've got mid for all the young people out here and everybody else who kind of understands what mid is, right? Okay, so we're going to go through this. So we're going to start off with, who is Joseph? It starts off really good. Joseph is the favorite of 12 sons. He is the favorite of Jacob. He's the youngest. He gets a special coat. He has these amazing dreams. At least they're amazing to him, because he's like, hey, brothers, listen to this. I had this dream where you're all bowing down to me. Okay, anybody who has siblings, if one of your siblings says, hey, I had a dream that you're bowing down to me, how do you think that's going to go? Not good, right? It's going to go bad. So what happens is, of course, the brothers are like, I'm sick and tired of hearing our youngest brother, who is so loved by our father, saying this. You know what? We ought to kill him. And I don't think they're like, let's just, pretend, or we feel that way. I think they really wanted to kill him, and they did. But instead of killing him, they tossed him in a well. And they're like, you know what? We can actually make money off of this guy, so let's sell him into slavery. And that's where things start to get a little mid, right? Because he's not left to die in a well anymore. He's now sold into slavery. It gets a little bit better. He gets sold to this man called Potiphar. And Potiphar is a wealthy man, and Potiphar puts him in charge of all of his possessions. Now that's pretty mid to me, because even though you're in charge of stuff, you're still a slave. And I don't think that's very good, right? So he's there, and then it gets bad again, because Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him. He won't give in. And she's so frustrated, she tells her husband, oh, he did this with me. And he's like, what? You did what? So she has him thrown in prison. So he's now back at the bottom again. Things don't look so good for Joseph, right? But while he's in there, God gives him the ability to interpret dreams. And there's two people that are tossed into prison from Pharaoh's court. One of them is a cupbearer, and the other one is a baker. Now, both of them have dreams, and Jacob's like, hey, God gave me the ability to translate dreams. So it starts to look a little bit better. I mean, he's still in prison, so it can't be all that good, right? Translating dreams in prison, anybody? Like, yeah, not the career that you want, right? But anyways, he translates both of these dreams. So for one, the baker, he translated his dream. He's like, that's not going to go well for you. Pharaoh's going to execute you. But the other one, the cupbearer, he's like, you're going to be restored to Pharaoh. So he's like, oh, that's amazing. And sure enough, he's restored. He's back in Pharaoh's presence. Joseph is like, hey, don't forget about me. So what does the cupbearer do? He forgets about him. So he's stuck in prison for another couple of years. But then Pharaoh has dreams, and no one can interpret his dreams. And then we get to the part of the story where the cupbearer's like, oh, I think I know a guy from prison. He's like, you think? Right? So he gets him there, and he goes in the presence of Pharaoh. Now, I'm going to say this is mid, because it can go either way, right? When you're in Pharaoh's presence, it's either going to go really well for you, or you could get annihilated. You just don't know what it's going to be. So here we are, and he gets the opportunity to translate his dream, but he gives God the glory, and he says, God has given me this ability. So it goes really well for him, because he translates the dream, and the dream is this. It's that there's going to be 7 good years, and there's going to be 7 bad years. And Pharaoh was so impressed by this, he's like, you know what? I'm going to elevate you to second only to me. And now he's second to someone who is the ruler of one of the most powerful nations in the world at the time. So I'm going to say it plateaus for him at this point because it's pretty amazing. I mean, how much better can you get? You're a part of one of the wealthiest nations in the world, and you're second only to Pharaoh himself. And so he gets put in charge of those 7 good years along with the 7 bad years. But here's the thing. All of the ups and downs, eventually, we all have to face our past. We cannot go beyond our past. We're going to, at some point, have to reconcile with those things that have been done to us. And it looks like this. The range of emotions as your heart is pounding, because this is what happens, right? He's selling grain to everybody, and then all of a sudden his brothers come. Everybody's coming from foreign lands to be able to buy grain because Egypt's the only place with food. So he's confronted with these brothers and all of the crap that he went through. It's amazing. So what would you do in that situation? Well, this is what Joseph does. He's like, well, they don't recognize me, so I know I'm going to put them to the test. And so he starts going through all of these different things. He treats them poorly. He makes them thieves. He does all of these different things to him. But the point is he goes through all of that with the rigmarole, and then we get to this point where he finally reconciles with his brothers. And this is where we're going to pick up on because it starts to plateau again for him. And this is the amazing thing. We're picking up in Genesis 45 here. It says, "And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that," look at this, "God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now, there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years, there will be no plowing and reaping. But again, God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So then, it was not you who sent me, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household and ruler of all Egypt." So why do I share that with you? Because this is really important. No matter what has been done to you, with God, your story is not limited to what was done to you. I'm going to say it again. With God, your story is not limited to what was done to you. We have to be able to reconcile to our past. You guys with me? All right, let's keep driving along. Because it's not just the stuff that was done to you. Let's face it, this is the harder one, I think. This is the stuff that you do to others. We've all done something. We've all sinned. We all fall short of God's glory. Not one of us is without excuse. So we're going to look at Jacob this time. Now, Jacob is Joseph's father, and we got, again, a visual timeline of his reconciliation, right? Because this is how you get through 10 chapters of Genesis. I mean, there's a lot to go through here. All right, so what do we got? Who is Jacob? Well, Jacob is a twin brother, so it starts out mid for him. Because I don't know about you, but in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but when you've got a twin sibling, it's not just your birthday. You have to share that birthday. You have to share the gifts, and everything is shared. It's kind of like those people who are born close to Christmas. You're like, is it a Christmas gift or is it a birthday gift? I don't know. It could be kind of mid. So anyways, it starts out as mid. But Esau and Jacob, right? Esau is the older brother, and he is the one who was born first. He is the one who is the strong, the hunter, the hairy one. He's the one who's out there, the hunter-gatherer. He gets all these amazing characteristics, and then they go to describe Jacob, who was the second one out, and he's grasping on to Esau's heel as he comes out. I mean, he's already scrappy to begin with, all right? And then it talks about who Jacob is. He's kind of a homebody. He likes to stay around the tent, so I imagine he didn't like to get his hands dirty. He didn't like to get into things, right? And it says that he was mama's favorite, so he's a mama's boy, all right? So that gives you a little character for who he is, but then things start to look up for him, and so this is what happens. Esau is famished. He's been out hunting, and he's like, I just would love a bowl of lentil soup. I personally wouldn't want that, but I don't know. He must have been really famished. So he comes back, and I know I was going to mix the names up. Jacob realizes, he's like, this is my opportunity. You know what? I'll give you this bowl of soup for your birthright. And Esau's like, I don't care. I don't need that. I'm hungry. So yeah, you can take the birthright. So it looks really good for Jacob right now, right? Until he's like, you know what? In order for me to solidify this, I now need to fool my dad to receiving the blessing. And so I'm going to steal the blessing that's really Esau's. And so what he does is he disguises himself as Esau because his father is no longer able to see really well. And so he steals the blessing. And you think that's going to go well for him, right? I don't think starting out with that intent, that's the right way. He still receives the blessing, but it gets worse. Why is that? Because he's got a brother who's a hunter, and he's the homebody. How well do you think that's going to go for him? This is why we're going below the timeline here, people. I mean, he's scared for his life because Esau is not little mad, he big mad. He is big mad, right? He is like, okay, if I get my hands on him, I am going to kill him. And not just figuratively, literally. But, like I said, he's a mama's boy, so mama comes in and rescues the day. She's like, you know what, Jacob, you got to get out of here because your brother's going to kill you. I'm going to intervene for you. You need to go away. You know what? Let's send you away. I'll send for you when he cools off, right? So Jacob is gone for about 20 years. All right? Things start to go up for him. He did receive the blessing, and he is blessed by God. While he's gone, there's a lot of ups and downs in there. I mean, he gets swindled himself, so he starts to learn a little bit of his own medicine. But the point is he is now grown to be so wealthy. He is married. He has his kids. He has got so much livestock that he can no longer stay where he's at, and he's forced to go home. We all have to face our past, whether it was done to you or it's what you've done to others. If you don't deal with your past will deal with you. And so now he has to go home, and it looks like this. And it goes below the timeline, right? Because let's be realistic. I mean, he's going to face maybe certain death, maybe not. I don't know, flip a coin, he's not sure. But being the smart guy that he is, he's like, okay, I got to go face with this. So I know what I'll do, Jacob says. And he sends his servants ahead to kind of get an idea what's going on. I don't know what was going on with these servants, but the servants go there, and the servants are like, okay, we saw Esau, and we came back, and he's coming to meet you with 400 men. Full stop. Not the rest of the story, like, I sent you there to kind of see, is he going to kill me? Is he not? I don't know, but no, he's just coming to greet you with 400 men. Wow. So he's like, all right, I'm getting really scared. He's sweating bullets, and he's like, okay, let me send some more livestock. Let me send some gifts. Let me try to sweeten things up with him. Let me try to soften things before I get that time that's there. In fact, he is so restless that he has a dream before he meets with his brother. And in this dream, he wrestles with God. I don't know how many of you have been so worried about facing your past that you have a dream that's so vivid. But he wrestles with God. In fact, he wrestles with him all night long. And in fact, God's like, I'm impressed. Like, you won't let me go. And he's like, not without a blessing. So God gives him a blessing, touches his hip. Now he has to limp for the rest of his life. But this is where we come in the story. Finally, he has humility. He sees Esau in the distance. He bows humbly until he reaches him. So things are going to look good here. Why do I say that? Because in Genesis 34, but Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. Wow. Not what is he expecting. He threw his arms around him, his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. They reconciled. How amazing is that? Because you see, with God, your past actions don't disqualify you from reconciliation. I'll say it again. With God, your past actions do not disqualify you from reconciliation. You see, either way, when we're in this drive and we're driving down reconciliation, when we look at our past, if we spend so much time looking behind us, we can't go ahead. In fact, you can't drive ahead if you haven't dealt with your past. You have to deal with your past. Now, that doesn't mean we ignore our past. That doesn't mean we don't look back. But you know what? God gave us something amazing in a vehicle. It's called a rear view mirror. We recognize what's been done to us. We reconcile with that. We deal with it so we can look forward. But we can't keep looking back. We have to deal with it so we can move forward. You guys with me? All right. So now we have to reconcile our future, right? Because we got to be looking ahead. We're back in our drive. We're ready to move forward. And we have to be forward focusing, right? Because when you drive a car, you got to be looking ahead. So let's see what God has to share with us. So we're going to now jump from Genesis to the very other end of the Bible in Revelation, right? Now that we're in Revelation, this is what it says in chapter 21. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people. And God himself will be with them and be their God. I love this part. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. How encouraging is that to know how it ends? You see, it starts with God and it ends with God, and it's up to us in the middle. We may not have experienced that same reconciliation that he's talking about, but we know where he's going with that reconciliation. He's encouraging us because he wants us to know the ending. He wants us to know where we're going to help us to take the next steps that we have to take. You guys understand? Good. So, as we're driving along, anybody who's been driving and the sun is there, you put the visor down. You put it down just enough so you can still see ahead, but if the visor's there, you can't really be driving forward because you can't see the traffic in front of you, you don't know what's happening. And that's what God is doing in our lives. He wants us to spend more time looking ahead than backwards. And in order to do that, we have to be looking ahead, right? He's giving us the instructions and the encouragement through his word so that we can follow to what he's calling us to be and what he's calling us to become so that we can be fully reconciled with him. So that leaves one thing, to be reconciled to our present, right? I mean, if we're dealing with the past and we know where we're headed, it's where we are today. And guess what? You guys are here today, so we got to get around to it, right? All right, so how do we get around to it? So let's look at 2 Corinthians and tie this all together. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. All this is from God. Remember, it starts with God, who reconciled himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. That God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ, not counting people's sins against them. And he has committed to us this message of reconciliation. That means he's trusting us. How is he trusting us? Because therefore we are Christ's ambassadors. I love that word. We have been given the authority to go and do what God has already done, because we have a role to play. We have a part that we need to do. And as though God were making his appeal through us, we implore on you, Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. And this is where he ties it all up in a neat little bow. He says, God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Now I love that, because you see, you can't change your past, can you? I mean, it's what's already been done to you. We can deal with our past. We can reconcile with it, but we need to be focused forward. We have to deal with that so that we can be aligning ourselves with where God is taking us. We first do that through that vertical relationship with Jesus, but then he calls us to be a part so that we can reconcile with others. And as ambassadors, we're now representatives of helping others to continue with reconciliation with others. So it's not just about you taking care of what you need to take care of, but it's about you helping others to reconcile as well. You guys with me? So this morning, I just want you guys to go ahead and put your arms out there like you're driving a car, because this is the thing. I can't do this for you. Only you can, because you're the one in the driver's seat. You're the one who has to decide, am I looking back and am I going to be stuck there, or am I looking forward? We have to deal with what we need to deal with, because you see, we have to settle our past, and we have to be aligned with our future, and we have to, wait for it, but today, all right? It's only you, and you get the opportunity to do it. So listen, that's the whole purpose of this coin. This has no value, but what it does have value with is that it's up to you to make that decision to take the next step today. So what is it that you need to reconcile with? What is it that you need to do so that you can reconcile well in the relationships that are around you? It's up to you. Got it? All right. Adam, you want to come out?